Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak in front of you. Over the past 20 years, the state of Israel shifted its economic focus and orientation from farming and agriculture to technology and innovation, building a very successful technological powerhouse. Our main research is evaluating and examining the success factor leading to this shift and the success factors contributing to becoming a technological powerhouse. In today's presentation, I want to address one aspect of the success factors and talk about the network alliances that are supporting this shift and this success. When you talk about network alliances, we talk about the local networks within local clusters, the domestic networks, and the global networks, foreign networks, the relationship between technology ventures in Israel and shareholders around the world. Israel is a remote, peripheral economy in the Middle East, very small country, about 20,000 square kilometers, with about 8 million people, was established in 1948. And during the first few decades, policymakers put a lot of emphasis and allocated a lot of resource to build farming and rural agriculture environment. And this was rightly so for many reasons: to provide jobs, to provide food, to provide security. And at the time, agriculture product accounted for 50% of the export and accounted for 20% of the jobs in Israel. Today, agriculture and export related to agriculture products are 2%. Today, Israel shifted its focus into technical and innovation products, considered as the startup nations, with in any current year, in the recent years, between 6,000 to 7,000 technology startup companies. Among the products that came out of this technology, Waze is a company that just was acquired for $1 billion in the last couple of weeks by Google. The Pillcam, it's a pill that we swallow, provide pictures for medical purposes of the internal of our body. Israeli companies are the top foreign traded in NASDAQ. Per capita, Israel invests the highest investment for R&D. 20 years ago, we had about 5 multinational corporations acting in Israel. Today, we have over 300 with R&D centers. 20 years ago, we didn't have any venture capitalist firms acting in Israel. Today we have over 250. During the last few years, 10 years, the merger and acquisition transaction where Israeli startup company were acquired generated $37 billion. So as we see the shift into high-tech, make high-tech as the main growth engine for Israel. But this shift didn't occur by itself. It didn't happen by itself. It was initiated by policymakers that work with collaboration, with educational institutions, with the defense, with industry, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurs, and urban planners. They put a few measurement and initiatives to make it happen. For once, build and develop technological or technology clusters next to universities to allow for this collaboration. They build incubators in these centers to promote and encourage startup companies to go and start their ideas there. They provided VC funds, which is necessary. It's the oxygen for startup companies. They provide all kinds of incentives to attract both multinational companies to come and open centers in Israel and VCs in Israel and outside of Israel. A lot of foreign VCs came during this period to Israel. The collaboration among different organizations was also very, very important. The defense, education, they feed each other and created this kind of workforce that can deliver. Policymakers and other stakeholders promote the network collaboration and alliances. And today I want to talk about the network alliances. In our research, we look at the domestic local cluster of networks, and we also look at foreign networks, the clusters in global locations. What motivated us was a research and study conducted at Stanford University, as the group of researchers claims that the most crucial aspect of the Silicon Valley is its networks. And we validated it from different angles. What we look at the individual technology venture, evaluated the ways that they build, maintain, and utilize networks, and also look at the stakeholders associate with them in the formal and non-formal relationships. And among these actors, we look at the government agencies, we look at the academia, we looked at VCs, we looked at strategic partners, angel investors, board members, friends of the founders, service providers, and we made a distinguish between the domestic local networks and actors and the foreign actors. We built a model, which I won't go into detail, but the underline is we want to find out what characterizes the network of successful ventures. And we look at the success as the outcome of M&A transaction, which this is the accurate market value for the venture. And we look at over the how much was invested. This gives us an exit multiply, which is very accurate to determine it was a positive exit or a negative exit, and what was the level of the success. We used a mixed methodology, qualitative and quantitative methodologies, evaluated over 400 ventures that exited via M&A. We collected questionnaires, we looked into databases, we got a lot of information, detailed information about their network alliances and all the relationships that they have with different stakeholders. We interviewed the founders of the companies to get some additional insight about the success factors. I want to go into some of our findings. So we look at different characteristics. We look at the diversity, we look at the degree of foreigners, we look at some other things, but the most important attributes that we found is the approach founders and ventures adapt toward networks. That means, do they look at it as a strategic asset? And the higher their score in their approach, the higher was the success level. Here we have some results of a correlation test that we did. As we can see that there is relatively high correlation between the strategic approach or the approach that founders and networks take toward and founder and ventures take toward networks. And we see it correlated with success. When we do distinguish between domestic in the local clusters and foreign in the global, we see that approach to foreign work networks is much higher. It's a 0.72. Another way to look at the contribution of networks and the approach that is adopted is we look at the ventures that had a successful exit, compare them with unsuccessful exit, and we see that successful ventures invest 16 hours on the average per month in networking activities compared with 7 hours of unsuccessful with negative exit ventures. When we look at the hours spent on foreign networks, on these global clusters outside of Israel, we see that it's more than 4 times, 5.6 hours versus an hour 26. Another way to look at the network activities, we look at the actors. These are the stakeholders connected to the venture and provided additional value in addition to their mission and charter. For example, if we look at the VCs, we look not only at the funds that they provided, but what other values they add to the ventures. Introduce them to customers, open for them markets, bring additional funds, help them with management, help them set strategy. And when we compare all of the different actors that I mentioned before, we found that the VC is the most valuable, most important actors, adding value and helping achieve successful exit. This VC has a direct impact on the exit outcome because their contribution is mainly in the advanced M&A stage where the market value of the venture is determined. If we look at this table, we see how dominant the VCs are. 58% of the network considered positive contributors. If we look at other players, other actors, for example, we look at the government agencies and we look at the academic institutions, we see they are marginal. This graph shows the contribution of actors in 15 different business areas. And the red at the top presents the foreign VCs. As we see, they do help in recruiting executives, they do help in bringing additional funds to the company, but it's very clear their contribution in the stage of the mergers and acquisitions. They do help position the venture for M&A. So they do help with the M&A stage. Here is another picture. When we combine the different activities, the business activities, we have an early, advanced as M&A. It's very clear where the foreign VC's contribution is. I just want to mention two other actors that were very, very instrumental during the early days building the industry. But as far as contributing to the success of individual ventures, they had a very marginal role in it. One more is the multinational firms active in Israel. What we found that the domestic local branch contributing in some way, but the big contribution was of the headquarters outside of Israel in the remote cluster, providing not only access to markets, but many times being the buyer of the company itself. I'll just leave you with this last slide and about the implication of the research, and just says that our goal is not only to impact the theories and the literature, but to provide a guide to the people who are dealing with technology venture, policymakers, entrepreneurs, investors, and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Yossi, for